Hi everyone, I'm Shelly from There's No Place Like Home at redheadmom8.wordpress.com. You know, I have a feeling that this coming school year there will be a lot more homeschoolers. So I also have a feeling that there will be a lot more questions about how to get started with homeschooling. So I decided to just add a few homeschooling 101 videos over the next coming weeks or maybe even months, just to help those of you who are brand new to this get started. And today I just wanted to share with you a format for a basic homeschool schedule. So you might have seen this in my last video, but I am actually recording this video right now on the Sunday night after the 4th of July. So if you hear any popping sounds in the background, that is just my neighbors letting off the rest of their fireworks that they didn't use for the 4th of July. So don't be alarmed if you hear those things. Likely those noises are in the background of my last video also. And I still have the same annoying moth flying around that it's driving me crazy. But anyway, I know that it can be intimidating to start out homeschooling, especially if it's something that you have never really planned to do and you never really looked into very much. And you know, I would encourage you to definitely do some reading about homeschooling and to read up on education. But I know that since so many people seem to be needing to do this, you know, kind of as an afterthought, it wasn't something that they ever really thought that they would do. I thought that I would just give you an idea of a basic schedule for a homeschool day, because a lot of people will ask me, what should my homeschool day look like? And you know what? What I'm going to say is that your homeschool day shouldn't look like anything in particular. Every homeschool is different. You are never going to find two homeschools that have the exact same schedule. Now, what I am sharing with you today is how we do it in our house, and I'm not going to get into too much detail. I'm just going to go into generalities of how we do certain things here. But I want you to keep in mind that I'm just giving this to you kind of as an outline for you to get some ideas on how you can get it started. And you know, I really also want to add that I hesitate to call it a schedule, because the homeschool routine that we have is not schoolish at all. So a lot of people, when they hear schedule, they think of like specific times that they do everything, and that is not going to happen in this video. I don't give blocks of time to do things. What we do is we do more of a routine. We do things in a certain order each day so that the kids have an idea of what is going to happen. But I don't set time limits. Things take as long as they take. And you know what? That is perfectly fine. There is no one that is going to be ringing a buzzer in your house telling you that you have to move on. So every single day we start out our homeschool routine with Bible and devotion. And yeah, we do that because we are a Christian family, and it is very important to us that we ground our homeschool day in the scriptures and in just devoting our day to God. Now, if you are not a Christian, of course, you do not have to do that part, but that is something that we as a family all do together. After we are done with devotions, I will usually start out with a read aloud with my kids. And very often people think of read alouds as being something that you do for younger kids. I actually read aloud to my kids all the way up through 8th grade. And sometimes it even goes past that into high school if they like for me to do it that way. Sometimes, you know, they don't like it so much when they're in high school. Other times, depending on the child, they might still enjoy read aloud time. But as not a rule, but kind of as a guideline, I do read alouds with my kids up through 8th grade. And you know, if you have multiple kids, it's not like you have to read aloud to each of your kids individually. I read to my kids as a group. I try to find a book that I think will be interesting to all of them, to all levels, and something that will engage them. And yeah, it's something that I do all at once. It's not something that you have to do with each and every individual child, unless you want to. And if you have as many kids as I do, it probably wouldn't be a good idea. But if you've only got like 2 kids, you know, I think that it's definitely feasible that you could read to them separately if you wanted to. Now, the reason that we start out our homeschool day with a read aloud is because I kind of look at that as, I actually saw this expression the other day. I think they called it a soft start to the homeschool day. And I really like that expression. You know, it's a very gentle way to get your kids in gear for what they have to do for their homeschool day. And it's not like, you know, they have to just jump in and automatically have to sit down and start doing all sorts of schoolwork. This is kind of like a nice transitional time. They know that it's time for school, but they still get to sit. They get to listen to a story. They get to hear mom read. And yeah, you can have discussion time in this. And this is totally learning. But it's a nice way to start your day. After we do our read aloud time, we have what I like to call together time. And it's corny, but my kids, it helps them to know what we're doing. So together time is basically a time that my entire group of kids will do things together. Now, before I had my kids broken up into 3 groups, littles, middles, and teens, and I would just do it by groups. This year, things might be a little bit different, and I'll explain that in another video. But as of right now, together time is really a time that and you know, you can add this into your homeschool routine no matter how you like to do school. But it's a time that you do learning together if you have more than one child. Now that could look like unit studies. If you don't know what a unit study is, I will link a video about that in the description box below. It could be maybe doing art together. It could be maybe doing music together. And you know, I really at this point want to tell you that you can definitely do history and science with different levels. You don't need to look at homeschooling as having to be separate subjects for every single child. Typically, yes, language arts and math should be done on separate levels if they are on separate levels. Sometimes different age kids will even be on the same levels for that. But it is so easy to incorporate history and science into a subject area that is going to benefit all kids. And what you typically want to do if you are doing that is just teach it a little bit higher level than the younger kids, because they will absorb it. Okay, did you ever hear about learning through osmosis? You would be amazing how that happens to younger children. And so yeah, that can happen with unit studies. It could even happen, you could combine it with your read aloud, and you could read a historical fiction to your kids for read aloud time, and that already is covering their history for the day. But yeah, together time is really a point in time where you try to do as many things with your kids all in one group. Now, the next thing that we do, and this is actually the last part of our day, is what I used to call table time. Now I kind of look at it as individual learning, but yeah, I try to come up with catchy phrases so that my kids know what we're doing in that particular time. So we'll still call it table time right now. And what that really is, although my kids don't do it at a table, they're usually like on the sofa here, or they sit on the living room floor. But anyway, all that is that's when they do their 3 R's. They're reading, writing, and arithmetic, because yes, this is the time that my kids do have their own levels of learning. So what will generally happen is that my kids will individually work on their language arts and their math, and I will take turns helping each of them individually if they need it. Typically it's with math, and it varies from child to child. Some of them need more help than others, but I try to give each of them some individual time, some alone time with me, one-on-one time, which is a great advantage of homeschooling. And so while I'm helping other kids, I will give my other kids maybe 3 R things that they don't need help with. Maybe they'll be doing their spelling 3 times each during that time. Maybe they will be doing their silent reading during that time. But I try to keep them busy as I'm working from child to child. And that is really the format of our homeschool day. And you know, I have to say, that's for this year, that will be for 6 kids. So we start out, I'm going to say it again, with a soft start, which is our read aloud time. We move into our together time when we try to do as many things as a group as possible, do them together. And I like, you know, I've heard of it called family schooling, and I like that concept as well. And then after you do that together time, you can move on then into individual learning time. You know, just that point where they're not going to be so easily taught all together, and they do need to do things on their own for that amount of time. Now, the reason that I do things in that order, I already told you why I do read alouds first. It's just because it's a nice transitional period into the day. But the reason that I do together time second and individual learning time last is because together time, since we are all doing it together, they will generally all get done around the same time. And then we can move simultaneously into the individual learning time together. And individual learning time, yeah, they get done at all different times. Some kids get done really early, some kids take, longer, and it just depends on if they're learning new concepts. It depends on if they're dawdling, which sometimes happens, but it's just easier for me to do the individual learning time last because that is the time that, yeah, they will tend to finish things up on at different times. But anyway, I hope that this has given you just a little bit of an idea for how you can structure your homeschool day. And again, I just want to reiterate to you, don't box yourself into thinking that you have to do things in certain periods of time. Like, you don't have to do math from 8 to 8:45 and language arts from 8:45 to 9:30 and science from 9:30 to 10:15. You don't have to box yourself in like that. Just give your kids a nice routine, a nice order of operations, so to speak, so that they know what's coming next and so that they have, just the same habit every single day of knowing what's going to happen. But you don't feel like you have to rush to get done by a certain time. Just remember, you get done when you get done. So anyway, that's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one over on Instagram because YouTube has disabled my comments. I will leave that link in the description box below. And if you like my work and would like to check out my Patreon page, I will leave that link in the description box as well. And I hope you have a great day.